All the best.
Hello, everyone out there. I hope you're watching these lovely ladies here. And we bring you a webinar entitled Start with Early Child Education to Impart 21st Century Skills. This is a very, very important webinar considering 2 points: the new education policy and the fact that the frame you see in front of you is packed with accomplishments and expertise. Welcome all to the session today being hosted under Wiki by the National Council for Elementary Education. A quick introduction. Wiki Elementary Education India is a vertical of Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, founded by Dr. Harbeen Arora and under the presidentship of Jasmine Kumar. It's organizing this series on disruptive education, the new 21st century model. This is in partnership with the Empowered Parents Forum, the news agency, the Super Parents, and the Ladies Circle India. I'm going to be quickly introducing you to the Empowered Parents Forum. The Empowered Parents Forum is an organization that works with uh, parents worldwide. It's a non-profitable forum, and it's committed to providing tools to become the conscious parent, the need of the hour, and a very tough call. We all know that. Super Parents, a word about them. This is a parental community platform and works to create a positive ecosystem around parenting and child education. It's also started with its own EdTech platform, working in the area of experimental coding and learning that makes computer science education accessible to all. Again, I need not stress how critical this area is. In addition to these two partners, we have media partners and associate partners. Our media partner is a news agency, a news portal for fast paced, authentic, and real time news. This is headquartered in Lucknow. DNA was conceptualized as a medium for the unheard, yet immensely talented, with its footprints in many tier 1 and tier 2 cities now, in the cities of the Bunties and the Bubblies. And a quick introduction to the Ladies Circle India. They are a zero head organization which has been working for the education and upliftment of underprivileged and benefit of society for the past 50 years. The keyword is a zero head organization. Lady Circle India has its presence in more than 100 cities across India and worldwide. Now, a quick stating of the topic once again: start with early child education to impart the 21st century skills. Now, friends, you see the panel in front of you. This is an extremely talented bunch of ladies. I'm going to start introducing them one by one. And let me see, I'd like to get each of them on the screen so that you can get a good look when I'm talking about them. I'm going to begin with Shagun Singhal Garg. Now, Shagun is a motivational speaker, a columnist, and educationist. She was rated in 2020 as a top life transformation expert for women and youth. Her recent independent online shows, which she did in February, since February this year, they reached 48,000 live views as a speaker. She writes columns and articles in Amar Ujala, Business World, Hindustan Times, the news agency. Her most recent assignment was that of Executive Director, Genesis Learning Studios. Shagun is a visionary entrepreneur. She started a leading children's enrichment center. What a nice concept. A prominent beyond school destination. This is with an internationally acclaimed Ivy school, Genesis Global in NCR. Shagun has also been a TV producer, national channels, and she's produced shows, documentaries on women empowerment. Jis Angan Na Hoye Bitiya, her first TV serial reached high TRPs. And there, you had a powerful message for women. Shagun has served as a brand strategist and communications consultant with Z News, News 24, and E24, primary news and entertainment broadcasters. She's been a branding and media consultant with the National Mission for Empowerment of Women under Ministry of Women and Child Development. I have to take a quick breath here. I told you in the beginning, this is a power-packed panel, friends. Shagun has also displayed her talent as a lead actor and a model. She was in ad campaigns like Priya Gold Biscuits, Dabur Hajmola, with a leading star none other than Amitabh Bachchan, Rajnikanda Escotil, and many more. She's a Pratma holder in yoga. She's an enthusiastic national level folk dancer and a state level air rifle shooter. And she's maintained her discipline in sports with her enthusiasm for karate at the national level. So there is Shagun Singhal for you. And thank you, Shagun. We are going to get Vibha on the screen now. Vibha is our next panelist, friends. A quick word about Vibha Gurtu. She's a relationship and personal development coach, teacher, public speaker. Vibha works on what she calls, interestingly, a 360 degrees of personal development, including thoughts, emotions, and spiritual values. Her aim is to create a balance in both personal and professional lives of others. Vibha has been associated with social causes since a very young age. Vibha has been holding workshops with Fortune 500 companies, educational institutes, and one-to-one transformation programs. She believes that one can choose to respond to what life offers to us, and that is a reason which drives her to assist individuals and corporate to reach their defined roles. Welcome, Vibha, to the panel. We have next Sapna. Sapna, she's an edupreneur, a passionate person about education, technology. She's innovating each day to spread quality education, an experience in international online academics for more than 14 years, illustrative history of working in the e-learning industry, avid educationist, tech-savvy, innovative, self-reliant, and an eternal optimist. Sapna has won many, many awards. To quickly tell you about her awards, she was the Woman Entrepreneur by the Global Education and Corporate Leadership 2018. She was one of the top 10 women entrepreneurs to look forward to in 2019 on International Women's Day. And it's under her guidance that My Tutors Online has been awarded as a runner up for the best e commerce startup. She was also awarded as a runner up for Best Woman Entrepreneur Startup in ANIAN Awards 2019. One more award, no, two more. Best Emerging Coaching Institute of the Year by IARE Awards 2019, and then Exceptional Woman of Excellence recognition in 2019 by the Women Economic Forum. Sapna, you are welcome to the panel. We look forward to knowing your views. And here comes my fourth panelist. They say last, not the least. Neha is the founder of Accelerate India. She has a doctorate in entrepreneurship, a certified design thinking practitioner, certified international career coach, 12 years of industry experience working across domains, including the Government of India, MNCs, tech startups, and educational institutions. She's a dedicated researcher and likes to provide solutions. She's presented research papers at many international and national conferences, and her papers have been published in renowned journals. She has conducted several training programs for students, professionals, and entrepreneurs. Welcome to the panel discussion, Neha.
Thank you.
Now, that was about the panelists. And friends and viewers listening to us out there, I have to say that here are some women who are stepping up and taking ownership. That is something to be lauded. And let's quickly get into the meat of the matter. The flow that we are going to follow for everybody's information and to help you stay with the discussion, there are going to be two rounds of questions. So first round of question goes around to all the panels. We hear their views, and then we move on to the next round. We are going to start with the first very obvious question, and this question goes to Shagun Singhal. Shagun, tell us, what are the most essential 21st century skills in your view?
Thank you, Neerja ji. Thank you, everybody. I'm Shagun Singhal Garg, as I was introduced. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I thank Fiki, Ms. Jasmine Kumar, for having me on board as a National Council member for Elementary Education, Wiki. And I hope I'll be able to do justice to all the work assigned. And it's such a lovely panel out here with such dynamic women, and we're quite excited for the day. Welcome all the lovely guests. Preparing a child for the world which doesn't exist is quite a task. What are the abilities and traits that we need to instill in our children so that they can keep pace with the fast moving world? I'm going to get to some figures and some very short examples to actually explain the 21st century skills. You know, if you look at the Ministry of Education in New Zealand, they actually list down 5 key competencies which are required for lifelong learning. And this ministry is one of the most powerful in the world in terms of performance. Thinking, using of language, managing yourself, relating to others, and participation. Think of the literal meanings, think of the implementations. We talk of international baccalaureate, the IB program. जिसकी बहुत तारीफ है. We all know that. So the IB Profile League actually lists down a skill sets, list of skill sets which are actually needed by an IB learner. Let's look at those skill sets. Inquirers, knowledgeable, thinkers, communicators, balanced, risk takers, and very, very open minded. Just look at the list of skill sets again, and we know why an IB student is an IB student. These are just mere short examples. Coming to the 21st century skills, to my consensus and to the most transparent list of 6, going by all the theses and the researches which have happened and the papers that I was reading, I boil down to 6 21st century skills which are actually required to keep pace with the fast moving, changing world for any student. And you know what? What better a time than coronavirus to teach us that times have changed and times will be changing even after December. The first one, problem thinking, the problem solvers. The coming times we'll actually have a lot of conflicts, a lot of complex problems. Students who are actually able to focus on effective solutions are the ones who are going to be beating the other students in the coming 21st century. Now, what does that exactly mean? So, this is called solution influency. What is solution influency? Means under your inability to actually in real time solve a problem until unless you have an external help. We need to be able to move ahead, be the risk takers, be the get goers, be the problem solvers without an external instruction. And the problem solvers will definitely find more space in the global market. Second, creativity. I think creativity is a very widespread term, but to explain it very simplistically, creativity needs to be in the digital and in the non-digital space in order to find solutions. You know, the digital consumption that's happening now, you see the students, the neurons are actually charging every second. We've been stimulated. We're producers and consumers of information. But guess what? If you're creative, if you're given a task, you can actually solve it imaginatively. Creativity is not linked to art, drawing, sketching, or colors. It is a way to get very, very inbuiltly imaginative in your thoughts to be able to find a solution. And we all know that any student who's these days during the coronavirus times when everybody is under lockdown and working on their screens are asked to express themselves digitally, you can actually see the boost of creative edge best displayed on learning platforms on social media. And what a fantastic way to express the real you. I really feel creativity is a vital outlet that inspires students to be the best version of themselves, to actually know who they are and what they can accomplish. Number three is analytical thinking. I think that kind of inspires a person to actually compare, contrast, synthesize, evaluate without an external help. And this is why the experienced schools and the experienced teachers are now taking a step back, and they don't push the guns with a disadvantaged or a slightly weak student. This is the reason of this is the only way to actually develop analytical skills. Analytical skills are definitely the toughest in the 21st century. The reason for that is because when you give a task to an analytical thinker, that thinker is actually able to segment it, classify it, conceptualize it, put it forward in a very systematic way, and find very effective solutions to the problem by organizing it. That is, an analytical mind is a must to actually solve mathematical and scientific problems, and every bit of a task in the coming
Shagun,
complex world in the 21st century will actually
Shagun,
have, yeah,
I'm sorry,
the,
I'm interrupting you. We have a whole lot of ground to cover, and you've given so
yeah.
much. I think our listeners will need a little time to absorb all you're giving. So,
Yeah, so I
can
just
we?
have 10,
Yes,
I just have 10 seconds to go, if you can
sure,
allow me, and I'm
sure.
done. Yeah. So
Yes,
that's
thank
about
you.
analytical, and
Certainly.
we're concluding with collaboration, which is a must ability to collaborate seamlessly, not only in the physical and the virtual world, but we also have to collaborate in the physical world for good emotional and physical health. Communication is the fifth one, which actually helps us to communicate not only with our speeches, but we should be able to communicate with multimedia formats, with images, so that we are able to sustain big alliances. And I conclude with the sixth, 21st essential skill set, which is action and accountability. If we take accountability of our own actions, our own ethics, and we adapt to the external world, that is the only way to actually look forward to a meaningful performance in the 21st century. So, those were the six skill sets which I'd like to put a stamp on for the 21st century.
Absolutely brilliant and bullseye, Shagun. I love the last bit where you say accountability. So, so, so crucial. And if these skills were all there in our early education system, I really wouldn't have struggled to send my children abroad. Uh, let's go to Vibha with the next question. And Vibha, please tell us what recommendations of the new education policy that cover early childhood education do you think will help to develop all these skills that Shagun has so beautifully laid out? Vibha,
दीघा बोल रही हूँ तो मुझे बोलना है.
yes,
So, yeah, I said that it was so amazing to listen to Shagun. But Shagun, for this, recommendations would be like we have seen that around 5 crore kids, they do not have, they have not attained any of the foundational literacy. And then the national mission, they just focus on those foundational literacy wings to have basically the wise investment. As when they think about the psychological and the educational and the development point of view, they feel that all aspects of adult human capital and from workforce to skills to cooperative and all the lawful behavior and building on the capacity and everything they feel is done from the beginning of the years, from birth to 6 years, that early childhood. So the recommendations would be to make it more of a physical and developed cognitive development, happening in the basic ground level, where they are recommending the cultural and artistic development, and they are developing the communication and the early language And that's where they're talking about the vernacular language to be inculcated so that the kids can talk their mind out in that egalitarian society where they can develop freely. So that's a recommendation when they talk about it, because they have changed it from 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system. So from Anganwadi, they have concentrated on the Anganwadis and Bal Vatikas and play schools. And some of the problems which have come up is the government has been doing this, but the private sectors, there may be they have to become more open to it. So this is the expectation when they come, that how they have played up the whole system being divided, the small childhood, and it has to be very beautifully integrated in the foundational years. And that's why they have decided this, the whole scheme. So they have stress on this, that no rigid, separation between the academic streams and extracurricular comes over, and vocational streams are there in school. Sports are also, included, and so that they have um, the flexibility to move, to develop themselves, and the different classes may have from class onwards. They may provide the internship also, and so they can move forward. So this is the recommendations they have made in the early childhood, and it is basically the skill-based learning. So where it is the skill base is like, as she has mentioned, that communication and collaboration and adaptive skills. Nowadays, like we see the COVID thing, how we have adapted it, and the persuasive skills, I feel, are recommended, which you can influence your ideas, you can think about it, you have the flexible ground, you can grow into different streams, and you can pick and choose. At least the teachers are trained now, where they inculcate those small activities where the child is open enough, communicative enough in its own language, and develop its own leadership, a personal leadership qualities, where he is proud and he feels equal with all. So it's more of an integrated thing, which I feel, and it's a holistic relationship with oneself, with communication, with connection, and with conscious action. This is what I feel, that where it is the formative years is to have a fearless, successful living for the future. So that is what skill based and the recommendations are. And this is what I feel about it. And to have a realistic living consciously, and a realistic, to the practical way of living life. So that's what with the skills and the recommendations are being made in this new education policy, which is a boon, which is a boon
Thank
in
you.
fact.
Thank you, Biba. Thank you so much. Your uh, your excitement is coming out of the screen, jumping out of the screen. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And
because formative
yes,
years are so important. Yeah.
so with all that Vibha has just shared with us, it's clear that the intention is there. The intention is very much there in the new education policy. Measures have been put out there. Now it's a question of taking it forward. We have Sapna on the screen now. Sapna, we'd like to
Yes.
know from you. What do you
Okay.
imagine? What is your wish list? What do you imagine in an optimum learning environment for the 21st century skills, to take it logically forward from these 2 points that Shagun and Vibha have covered just now?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to such a nice panel discussion. And thank you, Neerja, for such a warm welcome and telling so much about me. Thank you so much. Now, coming to the question, we are living in a world that is dramatically changing in terms of economic, in terms of society, in terms of technology. Day by day, everything is evolving so much. So the knowledge and the skills which we have acquired, if we provide the same knowledge and skills to the current generation, we are not able to address the challenges of the future. So it was a time when teachers could expect whatever they have taught in the class is going to sustain with the students for a lifelong term, right? But in today's rapidly changing environment, we have to create a robust learning environment, learning space where we are able to cater the jobs which we are not aware of what kind of jobs are coming up, the technologies which are not yet invented. We have to provide the solutions to the problems which we even don't know when will it
Exactly.
arise, right?
Yes.
So if
Exactly.
I must say the most conducive environment that would be optimum for the 21st century skill sets to be inculcated to the students, I can say the learning environment must be the coordination between the four stakeholders. These are the family, the school, the teachers, and the peer groups, right? There must be a great coordination between all the stakeholders of the education system. We must try to provide a learning environment that is going to inculcate knowledge, skills, and lots of technologies to the students. Why? Because learning is a personal experience. So just going along with the formal education is never going to help, right? There must be an aim to provide the learning where the students can themselves, have the self discovery about the learning. There should be no pressurize on the students where we need to keep up saying that now it's the time to study, now it's time to play. If it's time to play, let them play. Motivate them to study along with play, right? So if I sum up the recommendations, the optimum environment which I feel for a great learning environment to take place, there are five recommendations from my side. First is learner centric. The classroom environment, the family environment, the peer to peer environment, every place there, it must be a learner centric. The learner must be ensured that he is the real active creator of the knowledge. He is creating environment for himself. It should not be like, just fit and sit and study. Because every learner has its own pace of learning. Every learner has its own way of learning. Okay. Then next is peer-to-peer interactions. Networking socially with the relatives, with the friends. Along with that, we have to create an environment where students are interacting with themselves, so that a leadership skill can be developed, a teamwork can be developed in them, and they learn to sacrifice their thoughts and they try to adjust with the thoughts and ideas of others. Third thing I would say is the parent participation. There must be a active participation from the parents. They need to
Yes.
be completely involved in the societal, emotional, mental intelligence, every part of their children development. They need to create an environment at home, at relatives place, wherever they are going. They must boost up their children. They must create an environment so that they are able to provide psychologically, emotionally healthy people to the world. Okay. Next I would say is to create a self learning environment, because sitting into a classroom where everybody has their own pace of learning is not going to help much more now in the 21st century skill set. The learning environment must be aimed from the early childhood days itself, so that we can create a foundation where the student, where the individual is trying to grasp things by himself. They are trying to inculcate the spirit of self discovery, the spirit of self learning, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next thing I would say is the teachers as the facilitators, because earlier the teachers used to be a teacher in the classroom teaching some topic, but now they have to act as facilitators, mentors, coaches, where they also need to upgrade themselves as per the technology, as per the skill required to inculcate the social skills, inculcate the 21st century skills to the students, right? And teachers have to maintain a two generation gap. Why? Because they have learned from their previous generation. They are themselves one generation,
Yes.
and now they have to teach to the students that is the next generation. So they have to maintain a two generation gap. That means they have to upgrade themselves also. Okay. So if I conclude, the optimum environment, the most conducive environment for the learning for the 21st century skills enriched studies education, then I would say we from the education system must provide a learning environment that is able to produce individual students with flexibility, with open-minded approach, and they are upcoming with healthy people to the world, and they are the inventors, thinkers, and technology engaged students, right? Thank you. That's all from my side.
Lovely, lovely,
Yeah.
Sapna. Two brilliant thoughts. One, that the teacher must stay relevant, and the
Yeah.
second is the self-directed learning. These are the
Yes.
things that we are going to see more and more in the future. Fantastic thoughts there. And
Thank
we have Neha on the screen. Neha, I'd like to know from you, for the sake of all our listeners and viewers, uh, the policy that was outlined about the first 5 years of a child's educational life, and it was called the first building block. But there are debates about the difficulties in implementation. Where do you think there'll be the biggest challenges? What ought we to anticipate?
So, first of all, thank you very much for bringing me on this platform, and I appreciate all the views which is coming up from all the panelists. They're very, enriching and thoughtful, and I somehow believe all of them in their parts. They're actually quoting and decoding this policy to a certain level. Coming back to this question, Neerja, I believe, first of all, I would like to quote here the report data, which is like annual status of education report 2018. Even at the age of 3, at least 7 out of 10 children are already enrolled in early childhood centers, right? So be it Anganwadi, which is in the rural areas, or be it the preschools, which are uh, absolutely modern and updated, preschool centers. But I would understand, and I would like to bring here that this is not the universal thing. There are, 3 is the gap here itself, and every state is not having the universal and uniform enrollment of these students in the preschool and the pre-primary education. And I think we need to expand the access to pre-primary opportunities for those who are not, the part of this net and still outside from this number. Also, it is very essential to to integrate developmentally appropriate practices, both in pre-primary, and then we have to look the smooth transition to the primary, because the final policy which has come up has laid out that 3 to 8 years of age are as a continuum, right? So this continuum is not just a construct. It's just not a concept. It will need to be operationalized in terms of provision, in terms of approach, in terms of curriculum, as well as the pedagogy. So, the policy also boldly suggests that the outcomes, there are certain outcomes which are not achieved by the end of the class 3, then the whole policy would be useless. It is irrelevant, right? So it somehow gives us the timelines. It is actually giving us some sort of goals to prepare ourselves in a manner to achieve these outcomes, so that we together, all the educators and the system in place, we together should utilize the benefits of this policy. And this comes at the very early stage, which is like foundational skills that we're talking right now. So yes, I believe that we need to think on, first of all, inclusion. There has to be inclusivity in this policy. We need to give right and bring more children to this program. Every child should get effective and the right age education. They should be enrolled in preschool structures, as well as there has to be certain methodologies which needs to be operationalized in terms of pedagogy, curriculum, uh, as well as the approach, and whatever things are required in order to operationalize this. Likely, Sapna has mentioned that we need to have relevant trainings of our teachers, Though we have in urban areas, we have updated and skillful lot of teachers, but we need to think about the inclusivity now. Yes, and this is very important. We need to give right to education to each and every child, and they should get the good education at the right age. Yeah.
Thank you, Neha. I hear what you're saying. My understanding is that you do believe and you do see that for a nation of our size and our reach and our socioeconomic problems, that will be the biggest challenge. Just getting this education policy in terms of real deliverables to
Neerja
every
ji,
child
could you
out there.
switch to your video, please? Please switch over to your video. Thank you.
Sorry, what, Shagun?
Please, we request you to switch over to your video. We are unable to see you.
To me?
Yeah. Sure. Please carry on.
Okay, all right. I was just, yeah. So, friends and listeners, we are done with our first round of questions. We are moving on to the next one. Panelists, stay with us. Uh, it's the next round of questions are also very, very incisive questions. We are going to follow the same order, and we have Shagun there. Let me put her on the screen. And Shagun, your question would be, uh, early childhood care and education is the greatest and the most powerful equalizer. That's what the education policy says. Please interpret this for our listeners and our viewers.
Thank you, Neerja ji. Very well moderated in the first session and very, very powerful insights by all the panelists. We move on with the second session now. Thank you for that question. I'll get to pure facts. 7.6 million children actually under the age of 5 die every year. Out of that, if you look at 25 times the size, which is about 200 million children, according to the reports, survive, which is that on an average, in a country loses about 20% of its productive adult population for reasons unknown. Early childhood years are the most important years for development. It's a period of great productivity and vulnerability. Now, if we were to look at it, many children do not get early childhood care and development for reasons like income, geographical boundaries, ethnicity. You also have sexual orientations, but it's their right. It is important because it sets the next generation going. Early childhood education, in the form of, whenever you read the research papers and the thesis, it explains, because it has the onus of bringing to you intelligence level, personality levels of understanding in depth what is happening around you. I'll get to another pure fact, which is from the World Health Organization recent report of early childhood care and education, which says that this period is defined from prenatal to 8 years. And this is a crucial period which sets the foundation of your life ahead. If you look at this phase, we actually tend to learn skills which are cognition, social, economic, physical, emotional. And once you start learning and absorbing these skills till the 8 years of age, you use them for the rest of your life, for school learning, for economic participation, as well as success in life. Now, this was the foundation of why early childhood care and development is required, on the basis of which our national education policy has come out with fantastic outcomes, still questionable by a lot of people, but I like to believe that it's a powerful equalizer. They have really set importance to the initial foundation years of a child's life. Now, the policy document actually focuses on the age group 3 to 8 years, from the pre-primary to the primary stage, where focus should be laid on the growth and learnings dependent on the learnings of the previous year. It also, the document and the policy also stresses on the national mission, which should be set up to actually check that the end of class 3, every child should be able to gain numeric skills and foundation literacy. Today in India, going by the ACER report, which is the most authentic education report of annual status of an education report in 2019, it actually states that 7 out of 10 children are already going through the preschool format phase. It could be in the form of neighborhood, it could be in the form of lower KG moving to upper KG. The rural areas have actually opened up these schools before schools. The Anganwadis exist with the government schools, and they also exist in the communities. The most important states which are working in this direction are Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Assam, and Bihar, and they're actually investing heavily in materials, training, and mechanisms, which are all the foundations which are reflective in the national education policy as well. I'd like to bring in call to action of two important examples here of world leaders who talk about early childhood care and education. The first is the World Bank, which actually talks about that the science and rationale for investing in early childhood education and care is a must. And you also have UNESCO and UNICEF, bodies which are world known, talking about the strong foundations in early childhood and care and education. So who questions them? There is a reason for these statements by such renowned worldly bodies. So maybe I'd like to just conclude by saying that the country and the societies which invest heavily on their families and students and children harvest the fruits of care and development. But the real catch here is wise investment. And this wise investment should happen at the right age and at the right time. And that right time is definitely the early years of childhood. So I'd like to definitely affirm the fact that this policy is an equalizer in the coming times and a powerful one.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shagun. Dear panelists, we have 15 minutes to go before going off. So I'm going to give you more time and not take time. Vibha, NEP 2020 states that if the statewise goal of foundational skills is not achieved by class 3, the rest of the policy is irrelevant. Would you agree with this?
No, I don't think so uh, because sometimes the stage wise, like the goal of foundation skills, still that class 3 starts. Other skills are also there, so it will not be. There'll be other things which would be coming also. They can be supplement, they can be substitute, they can be other things also which would be there.
Right, Vibha. I think what the education policy is saying is that the fundamental skills, the building blocks, if those
Yeah.
building blocks are not in place by a certain stage, then the structure or the edifice cannot stand. I think that's where
That I
the
agree.
yes.
That I definitely agree that it has to have a strong foundation. But then, as these policies, which now they have implemented, we had seen in 1950s also when Anganwadis and Balvatikas were also there in the government policies in 1950s also, and things started changing with 90s, right? When so much of competition came and specialization came. Yes, the foundation is important, but the fact is that once is everybody they have to go in sync with all of them together. It can't be only with this, but it has to be the whole thought process. The society has to get sensitive about it, and all the sections of society in hierarchy, all sections have to get sensitive and working towards it. Then only the foundation will be properly laid. This is what I meant.
Right. I hear you. What you're saying is that too much focus on just these early years and the attributes that they are looking to build there. Along with that, the environment also has to keep pace with it, because the new education policy is, advocating something which is very, very fundamentally different from the way we've done things so far. Our approach to
Exactly.
education has been very different. It's not been child centric. A lot of
So it
the
has to be
environment. True.
yeah.
That's true.
So
Right.
the family, the society, the
Okay.
teachers, the whole structure has to work with it because it is futuristic. It is coming from our past experiences when we brought changes in 91, and now it's going towards the future. So it's not only one thing, it's so much more. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. Once more, let's have an egalitarian and equal, and to increase in the gross enrollment system, the ratios. So everything has to go with vernacular
Right.
to foundation to where they want to reach, and with adapting every time. Nobody knew how COVID would be bringing us change. So,
Right, ma'am.
yes, foundation is important, but yet post-grad, free class, and all lots of milestones are essential for the development. Collectively, again,
Thank
wise
thank
investment, integrated, inclusiveness, that's what.
thank you, Vibha. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Sapna, your question
Yes.
would be, see, with every question, we are trying to engage with the policy. That's the only way you take it forward. So, what possible strategies would you recommend for the early childhood teachers? Vibha just said that the environment is also so important. So, what are the strategies that you would recommend, please?
Right. It's a very good question for the current education situation in the pandemic, that's going on. As you know, Corona is running out everywhere. And as teachers, as the parents, we have to think what we have to provide to that early childhood student who cannot learn online, who does not know how to be online, right? But I would say early childhood days are the days where the maximum brain development takes place. That up to the years of 5 age, the student is learning from the parent, from the teachers, from the peer group, everywhere he is learning. For example, an infant, when it gets born, it understand the nerve connection, right?
Yes.
So how to develop that neural connection with the child, we have to work on it. And as I say, like teachers, they have to be facilitators. So as just now Vibha was telling that there has to be an environment that creates the social skills, that creates all the 21st century skills. So teacher as the facilitator, as the mentor, as the coach, as the whole soul for a student, for a baby who is now starting to learn, they have to learn themselves, right? The environment they have to create in the classroom has to be strategized in 6 different ways. First is the inquiry based learning. And now what is this? Inquiry based learning is like student must be able to ask questions. What is this? Why this? And why only this? Right? The second strategy that the teachers should adopt is the blended approach. The blended approach is using the online games, the physical games, and mixing them, so that what they do physically they are also able to understand in the online way, because currently the education system has to stand on the online education. So if I must say, the teacher has to work on the blended approach, that is the combination of online as well as the offline. Then next is the flexibility of the learning. If the early childhood student wants to play, let them play. You create a story that helps them to play, and with the playful learning they are able to understand that story. Make them engage in a group, right? Next thing is the collaborative learning, peer to peer learning. What I want to say is, when they see others, they observe others, they learn that, they try to imitate that. So if a student is very good, the other would feel I also must be good, so that teacher loves me, teacher cares about me. In fact, at home, the parents should also think like that. That they have to create an environment that where they are able to imitate them. Right now, the next strategy that teachers have to inculcate in the learning environment is the use of technological tools, like
Yes.
not just writing in the notebook. It should be use of technological tools like Google Classrooms, like so many online technologies are already there in the market, which they can make them understand. They can make puzzle games, they can make an activity based learning, they can take an origami sheet, they can that increases the motor skills of the student. Okay, next is the teachers themselves have to learn, because they have to be upgraded so that they can make the students learn, right? Next strategy which I would recommend for the teachers is to be with the parents also. They should not be isolated, because parents community is very much important for the early childhood students. They are in more connected way to the parents than to the teachers, right? So for the early childhood days, we have to create an environment where social skills emotional skills, creativity, logical thinking, everything is getting inculcated, right? These are the things which I would recommend for the current teachers to have a strategy of lots of environment of the learning where early childhood, they love to learn, they love to play, so they have to play while learning, and the more they play, the more they learn. Thank you.
True, true. Thank
Yeah,
you, Sapna.
yeah,
It, what you said just now is really kind of it's 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 a portent to the shape of things to come. Actually, we really have these children only in the early years now,
right,
because in the future we may not have them beyond these years, because you already have 8-year-old 9-year-olds learning
yeah,
coding from IIT professors, from Harvard professors. And in the
yeah,
future there's this concept of personal learning cloud. Is not going to come to everyone, Neha, but is going to start. So you have this personal learning cloud where you're cherry picking what you want to learn, and maybe we are going to be seeing the end of the classroom as we know it. So things are going to be changing very rapidly. AI is upon us. It's difficult to say really what we are preparing our children for. I'm going to bring Neha up on the screen now. Neha, this is your final question of this webinar, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure.
Neha, what do you see as the role of a family in achieving all these objectives that we've been discussing so far?
Yeah, I think this is really an important and
Yes.
very interesting question, and I'm thankful to take this question also. Uh, we need to be aware about what the policy is talking about, right? So, parents, the onus is lying on the parents that they should, they should be well aware what exactly the changes, government is bringing and how they can absorb it. So, right now, it's not actually, though parents are they also believe in experiential learnings, right? They also want to see their children, grow inside out thoroughly, right? To develop competencies and all. But they cannot, feel, I mean, they cannot be away from the feeling of, putting their children in the competitive, in the sense of competition, right? So actually this policy is basically it's all about holistic learning. It's all about developing skills. It's very less about how much marks you are getting. It's very
Yes.
less about
Yes.
it's very less about being assessed and evaluation to be done based on what you memorize and what how well how well you are presenting yourself in that particular duration of time, right? So this policy is bringing a lot of change, and I think that parents need to play an important role to understand the policy right from the scratch, and should come up, should welcome this policy and understand the values which is attached to this policy and how important this is going to be for their children's future, right? This is not only about, children are not meant to only crack IITs and only go for the medical examinations. They're also, they're also to look upon their hobbies. They should also develop, what competencies and what skills Shagun was talking about. They're very important. Now as an adult we can understand the importance of these of those competencies, right? So competitiveness should come naturally to the students, to the children. It should not be, it should not be associated with the unrealistic judgments, right? So one particular event cannot identify the leader of future. This needs to be brought very clearly to all the parents, and I believe that parents need to get a lot of sensitization before this policy actually comes into the picture.
Yes. Yes.
Though I believe that many parents are now aware about, different curriculums like IB, Cambridge, and ICS. Many schools are actually adopting this holistic, evaluation and assessments. Uh, but still being parents, being a parent of 7 years old, I can understand the pain and the division of thoughts in two different aspects. So I believe that we as parents need to be really aware, and we need to set the boundaries for ourselves, and we need to raise our standards, and we need to let loose our ambitions, and let's not judge our children. Let them be free, let them learn, let them get into the environment of lot of learning. They should learn naturally. They should not be forced to learn, right? Learning can never be forced to anybody. They should actually come like a natural learners. And this is all I believe. Yeah, so parents are playing an important role to make this policy successful. So I wish all the parents to read about the policy and be prepared. Yeah.
Neha, I have to admit, make a confession that I've been one of those parents. I've helped my children work on their CVs. And as a typical
Right.
Indian middle class mother, I wanted my children to go to Ivy League schools. And they did go there. And they did choose not to do what they learned. So they forged their own paths. So they were at
Yes.
the cusp. But yes, what you're saying is so true, because this is a very challenging time for parents. I think parents are
Absolutely.
the most confused today. They really don't know where to draw the line, how much of a friend to be, how much of a disciplinarian to be. And my favorite quote is, I share it with a lot of people who listen to me, that today every child is being brought up by four parents: father, mother, and guess the other two? Who are the other two parents? The other two parents are YouTube and
And
the peer, and
Yeah.
the peer,
The
right?
yeah.
digital,
Yes,
the digital parents. Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
So, with
Yeah.
that, panelists, we've come to the end. I'm going to be wrapping up. Before I wrap up and thank all those we need to thank today, is there any last word that any of you would like to have? Any final words? Or are we all done?
I would like to.
Anything bubbling inside
Okay,
that's time to come out?
can
Yes.
I say that I always like this movie Monster
Uh-huh.
University. I think all of you must have watched that, and how they would scare the kids, and they were discipline and competition, and so much was happening there. And later in the second part, they realized that to get the current and everything, you don't need to fear. You don't make them be scared because we care. No, it just changed. And how their laughter, how inclusiveness, how team being, and personal competitiveness, they enjoyed being together, and that created so much more energy and light. So this is where I think the new policy would be bringing us
True.
all in, that we can create with happiness and being flexible and letting be. And so with kids, we parents will also be growing, and teachers and environment, and let's build a new future now. This is what I
Just
feel.
just adding to Neerja ji's point here, which she said that as a mother, which is getting very, very interesting. I think I'm just so glued to the conversation right now that Neerja ji mentioned, as a mother, her children have actually followed their own path. And, that speaks a lot about the mother. It speaks a lot about the parenting, that you inculcate those habits in your children to follow that own path. And it just begins there. And I think we should just have a quite good learning out of what Neerja ji said right
Hmm.
now, because that is the starting point of following the national education policy too well. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you, Shagun. There's a question in the chat box. How important is the role of teachers to install 21st century skills? We covered that, right? We talked about the role the teachers can play
Yes.
in
Yes.
instilling the skills. Yes.
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 And
Yes.
yes, Chagun, your child, if they're brought up to have their own minds, they are not going to give you an option. They will teach you empathy. They will
Absolutely.
they will do your reverse mentoring, literally. So I was also reverse mentored, that's true. And yes, we have just 1 minute to go, friends, listeners out there. Thank you for attending. And I have to call this off, wrap it up by thanking all the panelists. You ladies are really stepping up, and like I started out by saying that you're taking charge, you're taking ownership, you're doing something about it, you're speaking up. That's very important. So more power to you, ladies, more speaking to you. And we end by thanking Vicky, uh, elementary education, the empowered parents and super parents, as well as our media partners, the news agency, and the Ladies Circle. Thank you so very much, everyone. And we look forward to catching you again soon. Thank you all.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you
Thank
so
Thank
you.
much.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you.